Your microphone is muted. Oh, it's like you're making noise now.
Not with yourself. You get how you go admit. I video.
When they didn't ask me to speak, this is a meeting already. But I want to hear somebody speaking. It's there. The volume is there. Last
Sorry.
Be surprised what you have. Take the picture, you see what.
Sound check. 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 1, 2. Sound check. Sound.
the chairman of the National Stakeholders Working Group, the Chief Financial Officer of NNPC Limited, Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We'll begin with an apology for the late start of this blockbuster event. Circumstances beyond our control have taken us to some 50 minutes behind schedule. But on behalf of the organizers, we apologize one more time. And to kick off formally, please let's rise for the national anthem. Arise, O compatriots, Nigeria's calling to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. Thy labors of our heroes past shall never be vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bound in freedom, peace and unity. Please be seated. As I said earlier, this is a blockbuster event being organized by NATI, which is under the presidency of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And it is 4 events, as it were, rolled into one. The presentation of the NATI 2020 Oil and Gas and Mining Independent Audit Reports, as well as the report on what is referred to by its acronym as FASD, which is Fiscal Allocation and Statutory Disbursements. The reports relate to occurrences in the industry, and those occurrences include processes, production, revenue, receipts, and payouts. And the issue of FASD concerns governance, tracking the money. And more importantly, there will also be, at this event, the commissioning and deployment of the NATI Audit Management System, which is one of the innovations that will enable NATI perform its job more speedily and for the benefit of all. For a number of reasons, today's event is significant, for it is the first time that NATI will be rolling out industry reports covering oil and gas and mining and FASD jointly. And for this to also cover the year 2020, which is just to say something like last year, it also speaks to the speed and commitment with which NATI, through its board, that's the National Stakeholders Working Group, the Executive Secretary, and management, have taken on the urgency of their assignment. This is the 5th National Stakeholders Working Group that was inaugurated last year following its appointment. And the ES himself was also appointed last year, having been a director in NAITI. The role of NAITI, of course, you will get to hear for those who are here for the first time as to how critical this organ is, or this agency is, in terms of enabling all stakeholders to have a better and deeper understanding of the key issues in the extractive industries in Nigeria. The whole idea ultimately is to further ensure that there is interrogation of the issues, foster debate, and of course, ultimately ensure that appropriate reforms will get to be made. We're all delighted that we now have what is called the PIA. The PIA is the Petroleum Industry Act. And NAITI, of course, can beat his chest for having been instrumental also to the passage of what is now known as the PIA. So once again, on behalf of the management of NAITI, would like to welcome you to this event. Sound engineer, you are muffling my voice. All right, so before we get to the welcome remarks, let us quickly recognize a number of dignitaries who are here with us. The chairman of the NAITI board, which is also the National Stakeholders Working Group, is Mr. Olusegun Adeyemi Adekunle. Mr. Adekunle is a lawyer, and also he doesn't look retired, but he's a retired federal permanent secretary. So, Mr. Adekunle, pleasure to have you with us this morning. He will, of course, be speaking to us in his keynote address shortly. There's also the executive secretary of NAITI, whom I earlier said has been an insider in NAITI for many years now. And he was a director in charge of communications. And for a year now, he has been the ES, Dr. Oji Ogbonaya Oji. For those of us who are fairly younger, I didn't say younger, fairly younger, if you were listening to FRCN and the news reports, you would have been hearing, I am Oji Ogbonaya Oji. This is the man. State House correspondent for many years, and his reports were a must listen to. So, Dr. Oji, delighted to have you with us this morning. We also have the man who has his hands on the numbers from what used to be the National Oil Company. I don't know whether we can still refer to it as an NOC, but yeah, we have had changes. So it's still the NOC, now known as NNPC Limited. The Chief Financial Officer, Umar Ajiya, always a pleasant man. We have also Ms. Faith Nwandishi. Ms. Faith Nwandishi is a former member of the board of NAITI and also a former member of the board of Global EITI. EITI is, if you like, the parent, if you like, is the parent of NAITI, is based in Oslo. And since Nigeria, of course, began subscribing to the EITI standards since 2003, we have had this journey. Faith Nwandishi, we are delighted to have you here. There's also Ms. Abiodun Bayewu, Executive Director, Global Rights. very active in the solid mineral sector. Very active. Pleasure to have you with us. And last but not the least, another very active gentleman who represents civil society. Peter Ebule is the chair of the Civil Society Committee of the NATI board. We have a number of other dignitaries who are right here in our midst. Very quickly, you will permit me to recognize the country. We have here the country director, Anglophone Africa of EITI. That is Dr. Mike Uzoigwe. Dr. Mike Uzoigwe. You see, Dr. Uzoigwe is so self-effacing. As I'm introducing him, I'm sure that he will be wishing that the ground opened up or the floor opened up so that he would disappear. But when you are writing the history of the PIA when it was at Foster, the tremendous support and backup that they gave to the various processes and indeed the lawmakers, those issues, of course, will be acknowledged. Dr. Uzoigwe, we are delighted to have you here with us. Of course, neither the board nor the ES would work alone. So the senior management staff of NATI are also present. Dr. Donald Tiachimin, MNI, is Director of Policy Planning and Strategy. Dr. Bita Basi, Director, Technical Department. Dr. Ademola Afolabi, Deputy Director, Finance and Accounts. Mr. Usman Abdurrahim, Deputy Director, Internal Audit. Ahmed Hussein, Deputy Director, Procurement. Mrs. Jane Awumere, Deputy Director, Legal Services. Mrs. Obiageli Onwara, Deputy Director, Communications and Advocacy. And Mrs. Bridget Akbohai Fadare, Head Human Resources and Admin. And just to show that NATI remains one family, even when you are out of service, you take an interest in the activities of NATI. So we have in our midst here the immediate past director, Technical Services of NATI, Malam Garba Yakawada. So we will have some other recognitions in the course of this. There are a number of civil society organizations that are here, as well as government agencies, ICPC and EFCC and others. For now, we will take the welcome remarks from Dr. Oji Ogbonaya Oji, Executive Secretary. I want to urge that we listen attentively because the information that you have contained in the reports today will be the latest intelligence on the various sectors covered. The Executive Secretary.
The Chairman, NATI National Stakeholders Working Group, Barrister Adekule Olusegun Adekule Adeyemi Olusegun Adekule. The Chief Finance Officer of the NMPC, representing the GMD on our board, Alhaji Umar Haji, and my sister Abe of the Global Rights, the Chair of the Civil Society Steering Committee on our board, a member of the board, Peter Ebule, and our sister Faith Mwadichi, who was also chair of the Civil Society on the board, and also a member of the International Board. Well, the protocol is long, but I would specifically like to recognize once again the EITI rep here, Global EITI rep, Michael Zigwe, and my colleagues in the management of NATI. They have been well introduced, the management and staff of NATI. And more importantly, for this special ceremony, the members of the media that are here, all our core correspondents from the media, the electronic, social media, and print that are all invited. Our international development partners from ROLAC, Manuel Uche is here, Panda, Dala is here, and Revenue Governance Institute, Tengi, and several others that I may know, and heads of agencies that are here. Today for us is a very special day in the sense that the event we're about to do today is at the core of our mandate. I have a special, I have a written speech, which time might not take me to go through. I might just paraphrase, and they said that the essence of what we are doing here for some of us who may be asking, what exactly is 90 Publishing Report for? The 90 reports list the way for reforms in the industry. These reforms in any industry can only come if there is information and data. Planning without facts, planning without data is the bane of developing countries. And this is a change that Nigeria made by joining the global EITI. We provide information and data that enables the key state actors in the industry to leverage and have a very good planning that we drive the reforms. NITI has done this for the past 17 years plus, getting to 20 years now, and monumental achievements have been made in the reforms that have been recorded so far in the industry. The oil and gas industry in Nigeria is no longer the same. And it wasn't just the work of NITI alone. It was NITI working with the civil society, with the companies, and with the government, especially the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. That is the elephant in the industry that most times we fight, we push. But to push an elephant is a top-hill task. But that elephant has shifted a lot, and you can see a new law that has already shaped the industry. That is where we're heading to in the solid mineral sector. We want an elephant that looks like NNPC, that we can begin to push in the solid mineral sector for reforms to happen. Working with stakeholders is so key in the reform initiative we have done. And that was why my immediate step on assumption of office on the 19th of February last year was to ensure that we immediately reconstitute and put our board in place. Because the 19th board is the leader that drives the policy direction and policy action in the whole reform initiative. And without the board, 90 will just look like an orphan. And that was why immediately, within 3 months of my assumption of office, we got the board in place. And with the board in place, the necessary leadership were provided, because within the board, you have industry experts in government, industry experts in civil society, industry experts in the companies, and investors. They come together on a table and make decisions under the leadership of the chairman of the board. And they were able to provide the guidance that allowed us to build alliances, identify champions in government, and then was able to provide the direction with which most of the achievements were recorded and were launching today. We equally embarked on aggressive engagement with the legislature. There are several public hearings that are incentivized currently because of 90 interventions. In fact, every day we hop in and out of the National Assembly. There are about 4 public hearings on our report that are going on either in the Senate or in the House of Representatives. We took measures equally to strengthen our working environment. For 17 years, we had no office of our own. And I used to make a joke where we were making this case, that when IOCs, and I hope they are not hearing me, when they are here and they want to have a meeting with NITI, we normally go to book a place like this. That's where they are used to. Or we go to book a place in Hilton. to have the meeting. When they ask us, where is your office? We say it's somewhere near Asokoro. And they will not want to come because we don't want them to come and see the environment under which we work so that we don't lose value before them. All that is in the past now, working with our board and the current administration. Within the last 1 year, we have secured a befitting office accommodation. And we are moving now very seriously to put that same office to be, if not the same standard with their own working environment of the IOCs or the NMPC, we should be very close. But we cannot go stop until we get to, so that when they come to meeting, we will also do the same presentation they normally do for us in NMPC, that this building, which we come every day we go there, they must make that presentation, which is so intimidating. That this building is made up of 4 floors, as if we are not, as if we are blind. That if there is an emergency, you should take the exit seat. I must make that presentation to the CFO in our new 90 building. So getting a new office accommodation after 70 years for us is a major milestone. We're grateful to all our management team that work together as a team. We're grateful to our board for the leadership. We're grateful to our chairman for his inspiration. In the last 1 year, we have embarked on another project to move our data gathering process from manual to digital. Today, the chairman and all the leaders working here will be unveiling, will be deploying, will be commissioning the 90 audit management system that moves us from analog to digital mode of data collection. And we are deploying it the first time for the 2021 report, which the procurement process has already started. At the global level, we move fast to build alliances with our international development partners, without which of them we cannot do much. The World Bank, the Ford Foundation, National Resource Governance Institute, the British Council, the European Union, British Council under the Rollout Project, and the Global EITI headquarters, whose representative here has been very, very useful. And within that period, we launched several global initiatives, including the opening extractives, which we put in place to deepen the implementation of beneficial ownership. Contract Transparency Network, we have established interagency collaborations and have signed a number of MOUs to ensure that those who want to take our report for granted, we have some consequences to face. We have the ICPC here, we have the NFIU, we have the EFCC. They are here because immediately this report is launched, it will become a document for their review and further necessary action. As a result of our global engagement, Nigeria was elected to chair the Global Contract Transparency Network with membership drawn from 20 countries. And we have also won the Global Award in Seoul, South Korea within this last 1 year on the impact of NATI in leading the extractive thematic group under the Open Government Partnership. I will be representing Nigeria as the Executive Secretary of NATI and will be taking over from Mexico on the 21st of this month, March. The primary reason for today's gathering is in line with our mandate to unveil the reports that will further shape and push the boundaries of reforms and engagements in the extractive industry. We have today the 2020 Oil and Gas Industry Report. Our board has already approved it. We have today the Solid Minerals Industry Report for 2020. Our board has also equally approved that. We have today the Physical Allocation and Statutory Disbursement Audit. Our board has equally approved that. The 3 reports are ready for unveiling. We've done this in the last 1 year. In fact, we ought to have unveiled this report in December, but we needed to have done much more thorough job and the directorship of the board. And the reports we have here are excellently done, and they're also done with indigenous participation. The oil and gas report, every information on processes, transaction, physical transaction, physical in terms of revenues, physical in terms of volumes of production, financial in terms of revenues, and processes in terms of processes that went through to underpin the transaction are contained in that report. We have equally provided highlights. On the solid mineral sector, every information that needed that happened within that sector in 2020 are also outlined. For the fiscal allocation and strategic disbursement audit, that is the report that we said is not just enough to track revenue payments and revenue receipts. We need to ask questions. Who collected the money? What did they use it for? And we identified 9 states as pilot. Those 9 states are issues that these 9 states are states that have one key issue or the other, role or the other, strategic importance or the other in the solid minerals or mining. Please, any copy of these reports are collector citing. They are well produced and the information data and data reliability are on the granite. We are very proud of the job our team have done, very proud of the job our board has done, our technical committee have done, and I'm also very proud of the job the industry administrators, the auditors, who are Nigerian firms, have done. IT did a very, very courageous thing by making sure that in line with our local content participation, that most of our reports that were before done in London were rescued and they are now being done and produced in Nigeria, and Nigerians have done a good job. I'm therefore honored to welcome you to this world of data on substance and events that shaped the Nigerian extractive industry between 2017 and 2020. 2017 because of the FASD, but 2020 specifically because of the other oil and gas and mining. The FASD covered 2017 to 2020. I have to say that producing the reports was a very hard job because of the public health challenges that are now under control, the COVID. And then the challenges we see in terms of opportunities for IT to deploy technology. And every experience we gathered in the course of this job made it very, very possible and expedient and urgent for IT to deploy technology. That's why we'll today be freeing ourselves from carrying data by hand or calling on phone to automated means of data collection. It will be commissioned today. The IT board and management are settled to tackle all other challenges that have been outlined and articulated in the 5-year strategic plan, which we have also developed within the last 1 year. The plan is comprehensive and our annual engagement issues and activities will be drawn from the 5-year strategic plan, which our board has developed. I therefore want to convey our special thanks to President Muhammad Buhari's administration for the support extended so far. Not one day, this is my 1 year in office, have we ever got a call of any interference in our job, not one day. And again, for the fact that the government was able to liberate us from paying rent in Abuja. If you are paying rent in Abuja, even as an individual, it's not something you recommend to even your enemy. So I think the president and his team deserves a very good round of applause for giving us that opportunity to own a building of our own with the enormous resources that are put at our disposal. The NSWG deserves commendation for the strong leadership we have seen so far, for the policy direction and oversight of the EITI process. We're also indebted to the global EITI and our development partners for all the support we have received in the last 1 year. We plead that this support should continue to be put on our disposal. Well, we acknowledge the roles played by various stakeholders, the companies, the civil society, and the Ministry of Mines and State Development, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, whose chairman just walked in now. We're thanking you, sir, in our speech. Central Bank of Nigeria, Ministry of Finance, the NNPC, all the regulatory commissions and all the agencies covered by our process. I'm proud of our technical team that produced this report and also the extent of job that our board have done. And I thank staff at 90 Secretariat for their support and for their cooperation. On this note, I would like to thank you so much for coming, and please ask you to calm down as we unveil the report in the subsequent few minutes that will come. Thank you very much.
So one more time, please, let's appreciate the Executive Secretary of NATI, Dr. Oji Ogbonaya Oji, for the welcome remarks. He did say near his conclusion that one big fish had just joined us, and these are money matters. And the executive chairman of FRS, Mohammed Nami, is right here in our midst. It's our pleasure to have you with us on this very important occasion of the presentation of the NATI 2020 independent audit reports on the oil and gas and mining sectors, plus, of course, the FASD, fiscal allocation and statutory disbursement, which relates to governance. In addition, of course, to the executive chairman of FRS, we also have some members of the Petroleum Industry Act Implementation Working Group. They are also here in the hall. We would like to welcome you to this event. And just to indicate one more time that NATI, on account of its role in birthing the PIA, is an institutional member in the implementation committee of the Petroleum Industry Act. From the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, an accident about to happen, relax. So we have from the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, Engineer B.S. Goyer is Assistant Chief Technical Officer in charge of mines. Thank you for being a guest. From the private sector, we have the Government Relations Manager of ITO, Obiagelechi Umba. ITO, of course, is very active in the oil and gas sector. Pleasure to have you. But just listen to me, don't bother about the arrangements that we are making here. We wish we had a screen, you know. So now we have a horseshoe. So a horseshoe sitting arrangement is better, so that, you know, don't just worry, we just listen to what I'm saying. Now, the Registrar General of the Corporate Affairs Commission is represented here by his essay, Teva Ayuajo. And let me just mention this because the ES in his welcome address did reference in passing the beneficial ownership register. Now, that was another major work that NATI worked on as part of ensuring greater transparency and accountability. The beneficial ownership register, and the CAC was a good collaborator in that project. Earlier, we talked about the EU and British Council rep in charge of rule of law and anti-corruption. Donald de Planck is right here in our midst. Also, Dr. Emmanuel Uche, it's also here. And by the way, as this program is running, we have online participation from the EITI Global Office in Oslo, Norway. We have, we've been joined, Dr. Ojo Bonaya Oji. All right, so I thought you wanted to take the center stage again for some. All right, yes, thank you. We will, of course, recognize him as the program progresses. We will take some goodwill messages now before the keynote address is delivered by the chairman of the National Stakeholders Working Group. Now, while we are still getting the chairman of FIRS to settle down, just to put him on notice that we will tap him for a goodwill message. But, you know, the ES said something. The reason why venues like this are chosen. I'm sure if it were their old office in Asokoro that you were convening this public presentation, the cramped office accommodation might have been a discouragement for both the NNPC CFO and the chairman of FRS. So it's a cozy environment. You can see we are all happy and it's an easy to locate venue. So for the goodwill messages, let's begin with the NNPC Limited. My pleasure to welcome Malam Umar Ajia, who is the Chief Financial Officer, to deliver a goodwill message.
Thank you very much, MC. Very good morning, Mr. Chairman, the ES, representative of the EITI, the civil society organization, my friend Peter, Chairman, Federal Inland Revenue Service, and my friend from the global, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. For us, we see NITI as a partner. It's no longer what it used to be in the past. That when the Auditor General comes knocking, or when NITI comes knocking, then everybody within the NNPC towers feels as if an investigator has come. We have changed that narrative in the sense that the federal government itself has keyed into transparency agenda. And when we came on board, we decided to adopt that and developed our own agenda of transparency, accountability, and performance excellence. What that meant was that we no longer have any reason to hide anything to any Nigerian, not to talk of bodies that have been established to scrutinize and follow the federation revenues from the oil and gas sector. And we, being the leader in that industry, we have since seen the merit of doing that. We are now members of NIT. We are also members of EITI. And on top of that, we have decided to be every year the first agency of government to publish its books, accounts. We did that for 2020, and we will publish that of 2021 before the media. Above that as well, we have basically automated all our business processes. You hardly come to NNPC today to find people pushing papers from desk to desk. It's no longer happening. And all is geared towards ensuring the spirit of transparency and accountability to the Nigerian public. More so that we have now the PIA, which has transferred us from a corporation being protected by NNPC Act to a Kama company that ensures or entails or confers an obligation on us to deliver rigorous financial reporting to our stakeholders. It is on that note that I wish to recognize and appreciate the work of the IT staff and management, because I know the hassles and the roadblocks many of your staff face in trying to accomplish this important assignment. You're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it for the common good of all Nigerians, including ourselves. And as such, we're committed to providing NIT or any other person information and data that relates to either our agency role on behalf of the Federation or our job as a limited liability company for the commercial activities we undertake, and for which also we are accountable to the shareholders who are Nigerians by way of 80% dividend payout as enshrined in the PIA 2021. So, on behalf of the Group Managing Director, Mr. ES, I wish you well, and I can also confirm that we are committed to solving and clearing any issues that have been identified in the 2020 report, if not already done in 2021. Because I know my team have worked assiduously with many other government agencies, including revenue mobilization, the Office of the Accountant General, the Office of the Auditor General, and the Public Accounts Committee of the Senate and the House in trying to answer a lot of the issues that emanated from the Auditor General's report. And so also the prior year reports of NIT. We have no hiding place. The PIA has actually opened us up to the public. We can be sued and we can sue as well. We will be transparent, but we will not be naked. Yes, indeed. The reality is that NNPC of today is not the NNPC of yesterday. And we are committed to that transparency and accountability. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, Malam Umar Ajia, Chief Financial Officer of NNPC Limited. And the quotable quote from his goodwill message, among all other things that he said, we shall be transparent without being, Thank you very much. That's so heartwarming listening to what the NNPC itself is doing, beaming a searchlight on its own operations. And as it's been said, and the year 2020, which these reports cover, was also a significant year for humanity on account of coronavirus and the lockdowns, and then what the world also got to know that part of the ways of fortifying your immune system is to stay out and then get some good sunlight. Sunlight is important for your immune system. Sunlight is also the best disinfectant anywhere in the world. So NNPC, once again, we appreciate your kind remarks on this occasion. I had earlier put on notice the executive chairman of FIRS, Muhammad Mama Nami, to give us a goodwill message. It's by ambush, but he's ever ready because he tracks the numbers, he tracks the issues, and there could be no perhaps bigger occasion than this for him to also have an inkling into what two critical sectors in the economy are doing. My pleasure now to humbly invite the Executive Chair of FRS to give a goodwill message.
Thank you very much. Our chairman, the chairman of NAIT board, people will be wondering why, even when I was late, I had to rush to come. Some of us were privileged to meet him before he joined NAIT. And without the letter that he gave me to appoint me as the chairman of FRS, I would not have been able to preside over the affairs. So wherever it's going to be, I always rush there so that it doesn't give me query. The Executive Secretary, NAIT, the critical partners of the House, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I want to make my own snappy by first of all congratulating our brother, the Executive Secretary, as he marks a year in office. And also to appreciate and associate ourselves with him at FRS on his achievements so far, and particularly to congratulate him on the report he wants to present before Nigerians today. Through collaboration in the year 2021, with critical stakeholders like NAIT, FRS was able to generate 6.4 trillion naira for the Federation last year. We want to appreciate you. The collaboration is not just about FRS being on the board of NAIT. We learned a lot sitting on the board of NAIT. We are able to generate adequate data and statistics that assisted us in our tax drive, and which today, even though some people say they want to be transparent, they wouldn't want to be naked, we are able to see their nakedness and we collected taxes from them. We are going to be able to, continue to leverage on this collaboration in order that we are able to do more for our country. Thank you very much.
Please, let's appreciate the Executive Chairman of FIRS for his goodwill message and for also acknowledging the chairman of the board. Earlier, I did say that the chairman of the board, that is the National Stakeholders Working Group, doesn't look retired, but it's actually a retired federal permanent secretary. And you can see the linkage in terms of the association coming from way back. So the young ones amongst us begin to also learn things about linkages and networking and what to do when the time comes for you to step into the shoes of responsibility, higher responsibility. We have in our midst Mr. Alwal Mustafa Rafsanjani. He's a very well-known face, Executive Director of CISLAC. That is the Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center. Rafsanjani, a pleasure to have you with us. Now, the next goodwill message will be coming from the civil society organizations. And Mr. Peter Igbule, who sits on the board of NAIT, was to deliver the goodwill message on behalf of civil society. He chairs the civil society committee of NAIT. But those of us who have been in the country since last week, I'm sure you have followed the angry reactions and demonstrations by women over the gender bills that were killed on the floor of the National Assembly with respect to amendments to the Constitution. We don't want that to happen here today. Mr. Chairman, with your kind permission, So, Mr. Peter Egbule has yielded. And we are therefore going to have a very competent person also on behalf of civil society. She's been a member of the board of NATI and also been a member of EITI Global. That's the board of EITI Global. Ms. Faith Nwandishi. Please, let's give her a round of applause. At least women have won one on this occasion.
Mr. Chairman, sir, please permit me to stand on already established protocol. I wish Peter was a member of the National Assembly. I'm sure we'll not be having the protest that we're having right now. I want to thank the management of NATI for this report that we're seeing here today. In actual fact, it's the first time NATI is presenting the 3 reports at a single meeting. And that's a wonderful one. Thank you very much for doing that. I keep saying that when you have a round peg in a round hole, you get things done rightly and at the right time. And also to confirm that NMPC has grown and become a friend to the EITI. I remember when the earlier days, each time there's a report, an EITI report, the first covered entity that will do a press statement to discredit that report was NMPC. A report that they signed off on. And then civil society will go and do our own press conference and say, NMPC, you signed this report. How can you discredit the same report that you signed? But I'm so happy that not only is NMPC a supporting company of the EITI at the global level, but that NMPC is a strong partner of the EITI process in Nigeria. I think they deserve a round of applause. On behalf of my colleagues, Peter Egbule has given me, delegated this duty to me to do. I want to thank you for the strong representation of civil society on the board. And I keep saying that without strong representation of civil society in the EITI process, we wouldn't have gone this far. Nigeria is a case study. The EITI at the global level is a case study. And that's why after every 3 years, people are asking, why do you keep changing your standard? It's because you have active civil society. From the EITI rules 2011 to the first EITI standard, then 2016 EITI standard, then 2019 EITI standard, why people are settling down to implement the EITI standard, a new one is coming, is because civil society is pushing and following that process. I think civil society deserves a very big round of applause. And thank you, sir, FIRS. I must say that right from the very beginning, one of the covered entities as civil society as us, we didn't really have problems with, who understood the process from the beginning. It was FIRS. Each time we visited them, at the time we were planning on giving them an award for being the best responsive covered entity on the EITI process in Nigeria. Because each time their doors were always open to respond to our questions, give clarification, and support the EITI process. And we thank you for continuing that. Without that kind of support, I don't think we would have been able to generate 6.4 trillion. That's a lot of money, if you ask me. If EITI process can contribute to a generation of 6.4 trillion, you can imagine when you have a petroleum ministry, solid minerals ministry, the FIRS, the NMPC that is now a limited company, and every covered entity in the EITI process, remaining transparent but not naked, and helping to send the reports. You can imagine how much we'll be able to generate. Thank you so much for this opportunity to say this.
Thank you very much, Ms. Faith Nwandishi. Please, let's appreciate her for the goodwill message she's delivered. and all is well and all will be well. The last but not the least goodwill message will be coming from AITI itself, with headquarters in Oslo, Norway. There is a country manager in charge of Anglophone Africa. I earlier recognized him, Dr. Mike Uzoigwe, always a very quiet, self-effacing gentleman. Dr. Mike Uzoigwe, please deliver your goodwill message. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the moderator. Mr. Chairman, the Executive Secretary of NAITI, members of the High Table, distinguished guests, I bring you greetings from the EITI Secretariat based in Oslo. The Secretariat is very delighted with what is happening here today. And I've been asked to express congratulations to the board, congratulations to NAITI Secretariat, and congratulations to all the stakeholders, including those who are represented here today for this landmark occasion. We want to recognize very specially that NAITI has continued to set a model for country implementation of EITI. So on this particular occasion of the release of this report, we recognize the timeliness of the release of the report, despite the number of challenges that most countries have faced in recent times, especially COVID and that of resources. NAITI was able to publish its 2020 reports about 9 months ahead of the EITI deadline. We also recognize the coverage. This time, I think Madam Faith also mentioned that for the first time, we have all 3 reports being published right at the same time. So congratulations on that as well. And we have also been privileged to go through drafts of these reports and to note very specially the number of improvements made in this new report. We want to emphasize that reporting is at the essence of EITI implementation. It's a very important component of EITI implementation, but it is a component that triggers quite a number of other activities. So NAITI has released the reports today, but there are quite a number of other activities that we expect from the EITI Secretariat should follow, especially from other critical stakeholders who are also gathered here today. We expect that the dissemination of the report will be taken beyond what has been achieved before. We also expect that the implementation of the recommendations of the report will be taken beyond also what has been achieved so far. And thankfully, we have also the key actors, NNPC here, FIRS, whom we expect will not just participate in the dissemination of the reports, but also in following up with the recommendations contained in the reports. We also expect that the reports and the contents will continue to generate public debate amongst stakeholders and the Nigerian public. We are happy that NAITI implementation or EITI implementation in Nigeria is generating considerable attention from government, especially from the legislature. We know that recently some ad hoc committees set up by the House of Representatives made requests of EITI data to help them to carry on with their own work, oversight work of the oil and gas sector. So these are the sort of examples that we expect that EITI data will contribute to public debate and also contribute to reforms in Nigeria. So on that note, I want to once again congratulate the board and the NAT Secretariat, and to thank you also for inviting the EITI, and to also emphasize that the EITI is ready to continue to provide support to EITI implementation in Nigeria. Nigeria is the only African country that has a member of the EITI Secretariat based in country. So we should take maximum advantage of that opportunity. So thank you so much and congratulations once again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Michael Zoigwe, Country Manager, Anglophone Africa for EITI, for that goodwill message, which wraps up that segment of the program. The next will be the keynote address to be delivered by the chairman of the National Stakeholders Working Group. The chairman, who is also the chair of the board, is Mr. Olusegun Adeyemi Adekunle, is a lawyer and also a former federal permanent secretary with extensive experience in the General Services Office of the SGF. That was a big portfolio that he did. Please let's welcome the chairman of the NSWG to deliver his keynote address. And just to state, because I was partly a witness, barely 6 months ago, the board held its retreat following its inauguration. And they promised to work flat out to ensure that there is a new dawn for NATI. And what we are seeing today is evidence of that hard work. Mr. Chairman, congratulations on work.
Members of the National Stakeholders Working Group, particularly the chair of the FIRS, I want to thank you for your kind words. The CFO NMPC, with whom we have always fought for the people to ensure that we have products at the outlets. The Executive Secretary, Nati, and the chair of the Committee on Civil Societies, Mr. Peter Egule. Ms. Faith Nwadeshi, our former member and former member EITI Global, and our great stakeholder from the Global Rights, the country manager EITI Anglophone Africa, representatives of government agencies here present, our international partners, development partners, management of the NATI Secretariat, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen of the press, a very good morning to all of us. And let me join everyone in expressing the sentiments of welcome to this monumental event. I am pleased to be here today to officially unveil the 2020 NATI audit reports, which are in 3 parts, namely the oil and gas industry report, the solid minerals report, and the fiscal allocation and statutory disbursement audit report. At the end of the unveiling, we will also jointly commission the NAMS This unveiling marks the most important statutory mandate to be undertaken by the NASG, and the 5th National Stakeholders Working Group is pleased to be doing this today. The event we're all participating in signposts another milestone in the steady progress that Nigeria has made since the country voluntarily signed on to the Global Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative in 2003. The decision to open up the extractive sector to public accountability was part of a larger economic reform agenda by the government of Nigeria. Since then, stakeholders in the EITI process in Nigeria have not relented in generating data, driving reforms, and developing a culture of engagement that has injected transparency and accountability into the management of our resources. Between 2003 and now, Nigeria has produced and published 13 cycles of oil and gas industry reports, 11 cycles of solid minerals, and 3 cycles of fiscal allocation and statutory disbursement audit reports. More importantly, NAITI has ensured that these reports, along with implementation of other requirements of the EITI principles and standards, directly address the economic reform policies of successive administrations. The regularity and relevance of the EITI process have also led to increasing public engagement with policies and operations in the extractive sector. This is because the unprecedented reporting on the extractive sector has produced groundbreaking and timely disclosures on revenue generation and management in the sector. Remarkably, this process has institutionalized a channel for ongoing remedial actions and policy interventions. The NSWG, that's the 5th one, is glad to note that the EITI process has become very much part of the national economic management policy and strategy, because its implementation is unique in content, context, and comprehension. NAITI's multi-stakeholder approach builds and encourages dialogue, coalition, and consensus among representatives of government, companies, and the civil society that constitutes the NSWG. Under this unique framework, the 5th National Stakeholders Working Group, which I currently head, has provided the required leadership and guidance for the production of the reports we're about to unveil. Ladies and gentlemen, these 2020 reports provide useful insights into the current state and future fate of Nigeria's natural resources. The oil and gas report is coming at a time that our country has made a major statement on the future direction of the sector with the passage of the Petroleum Industry Act, and also at a time when the industry is facing the challenge of a global transition. The solid minerals report, on the other hand, reveals the huge gap and immense opportunities that still exist for the sector to become the catalyst for the future economic growth and development in Nigeria. Lastly, the fiscal allocation and statutory disbursement audit educates us on the special provisions made to address critical development issues and signifies a major symbol of our unique form of EITI implementation. Let me use this opportunity to state that the NSWG welcomes the Petroleum Industry Act and regards it as a feat that was achieved after 20 laborious years of effort to reform the sector. NAITI's inclusion in the Implementation Steering Committee clearly reflects the prominent role it has played in pushing for reforms since the agency came into existence. We believe that being part of the implementation process will no doubt help to aggregate the views and expectations of our citizens in bringing about the social and economic development that the industry should deliver to the nation. In the same vein, the NSWG commends the federal government for the political support and its non-interference in the EITI process in Nigeria. The ES alluded to this earlier, and I wish to affirm it. The NSWG also wished to convey its appreciation to the global EITI for its continued guidance and support, and for encouraging Nigeria to continue to push the boundaries of EITI implementation in a way that is useful and relevant to our local realities. Finally, let me, on behalf of the NSWG, commend the NAITI Secretariat, management and staff, headed by the Executive Secretary and the Independent Administrator, for the efficiency and professionalism deployed in the management of the EITI process in Nigeria. I also want to join others in congratulating the ES for the milestone of 1 year in office and for the record of achievements that we have witnessed during this 1 year. For somebody who is hardworking, what do you expect? More work? So this time next year, he will bring you a report card of additional achievements. And we're sure we'll look into the list of expectations already read out by the country manager. Nigerians are also assured, now this goes to all Nigerians. Nigerians are also assured that the 5th NSWG shall remain committed to deepening the implementation of all emerging issues in the EITI standard. We're also committed to ensuring that EITI reports complements government efforts at maximizing revenue generation while leading the advocacy for oil and gas sector reforms in a manner that will serve as catalyst for the right investments into the sector. The audit reports we're unveiling this morning will be available to the legislature, the executive, the civil society, companies, international development partners, research institutions, investment, and citizens alike. All these areas mentioned, we regard them as our stakeholders, major stakeholders, critical stakeholders, and we expect feedback from all the areas. More importantly, the report represents an opportunity for stakeholders to use the contents to generate useful public discourse and dialogue that will push the boundaries of reforms and to serve as a tool for accountability, national planning, and development. You should not expect less from us, and we will not expect less from you as critical stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my honor and privilege to publicly present the 2020 NAITI reports for 1, oil and gas sector, 2, solid minerals, and 3, fiscal allocation and statutory disbursement audits. I will invite my colleagues to join me at the stand here. We will unveil these reports together. Global rights. We don't want our women to protest. Let me state once again that, yes, please. Before we cut this tape and unveil the reports, let me state once again that we took this report through a painstaking process, and all stakeholders that were covered signed off on the process and the content of the report. And the NSWG affirms the integrity of the report that we're about to unveil. So, I am privileged to unveil these 3 reports to the glory of God and for the use of humanity to develop our environment. Is the light coming on? So, can we go 1 copy each? The executive chair of FIRS and the CFO and NMPC will join me to commission the NAMs. This system will hasten our collection of information from the stakeholders. And it is a product of the lessons we have learned from the constraints of COVID-19 that limited movement, in fact, shut down the entire world at some point at the peak of the pandemic. From the comfort of your offices, you can transmit information to us. And we can also access information arising from various transactions. We want to thank our partners, especially the World Bank, for supporting this project. It is your project, it is our project, and we assure you that we will succeed on this next level. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, and the other very distinguished guests who are present this morning will appreciate the big task that you have done this morning, namely unveiling the 2020 industry reports covering oil and gas, mining, and the FASD audit report, as well as the commissioning and deployment of NAMS. NAMS stands for Native Audit Management System. So Native has transited from largely analog to digital. Congratulations. The next item we'll be skipping, which would have been a brief presentation on the NAMS itself. But of course, that's for industry and civil society users. We will skip that and move on so we can save time to the highlights and key findings of the 2020 oil and gas sector report. Now, the reason why we are focusing on the oil and gas sector report is not to diminish the significance of the report, say, on the solid mineral sector or on FASD. The information from the Native Secretariat is that those other reports will be distributed to civil society and media organizations in the coming days. The whole idea right now is to avoid in communication what you refer to as information overload, where you have too much information or data to grapple with. Which one do you pick? Which one do you choose? And sometimes you just might, for convenience purposes, leave out what is otherwise essential. So we are having the highlights of and the key findings of the 2020 oil and gas sector report. And this will be done by the Executive Secretary of NATI, Dr. Oji Ogbunoya Oji.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'll just take a few minutes to take us just through the highlights of the oil and gas. The moderator has already explained why the few days, all the other reports are ready. The coming days will be interacting specifically with the media and the civil society on the highlights of the oil, the solid minerals and the other reports. Just for want of time, to save time from the dignitaries, we just want to take 5 minutes to take you through the key highlights, the infographics of the key highlights of the oil and gas report. Please, can you? Yeah. By the way, that is the where NIT, how I wish NIT will be moving to, that's our new office, how our office will look like if you give us the next 3-4 months. It's not as big as NMPC, but it's just like wing A of NMPC. Let's start from there. So, good. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. No, that's not the next slide. Sure. Well, okay, the objective of this project is already well explained in the address, to explain and project the issues and challenges, issues, information, and data that shaped the oil and gas industry in the year 2020. And then we report on the company payments. How much money did companies pay to government within this period? How much of that money did government receive? How much oil, crude, was produced, exported, sold? What of the remittances of the revenue? How much was earned? We reconcile what the companies paid with what the government received, and we find out if there are variances. We also establish if companies paid what they, and those are the key highlights of that. The key highlights of that's exactly what I'm summarizing. Next slide. In all of these, 69 companies took part in this exercise. These companies are companies that met the materiality threshold. In this conduct of this process, if your royalty payments within the period is less than $5 million, we may not have much business with you. 5 million and above, material payments above $5 million. The companies that met that threshold within the period under review are 69. And there are 13 government agencies, including the NLNG. Only 4 companies submitted data, but were not available to reconcile their data with government. So we consider them as partially compliant. They will be under further investigation by our other agencies, partner agencies. The templates were designed, and these templates are like questionnaires that ask these basic information and questions that by the time you finish answering the questions as a company or as a government agency, the data we're looking for would have been completed. And then from the preliminary analysis, information that will conduct preliminary analysis, go on field verification and validation of the data you supplied and reconcile them. We also do further investigation of any discrepancies, both at the office and at the field. We do final reconciliation, and these are done by our indigenous auditors. The final delivery report will be given to the Secretariat. Each of these will have inception report, the first, second report, draft report before the final report. And most importantly, all our reports will be signed as agreed by all the companies and the government agencies. We don't publish. That's why we don't call it audit. It's reconciliation. Every agency represented there signed off as that they are satisfied with the information supplied, even when they are no longer in a position to prove otherwise, the variances that were noticed. So our report is integrity driven. Next slide. I've explained this. Next slide. Well, in a nutshell, during the year 2020, 646 million barrels were produced. And this was a reduction from 734 to 735.4 million barrels produced in 2019. There was a 20% reduction in production. We have also shown the 5-year trend analysis of crude produced. In 2016, 659. In 2017, 690. In 2018, 701. All in million barrels. 2019, 735. And in 2020, which is now 747, which is an approximation. Next slide. That's production. The crude stolen, either through pipeline vandalization or outright leakages or process errors or lapses, Nigeria lost 53 53 million barrels valued at $2 billion. That's what we lost in 2020. The drop in the crude losses was due to theft and sabotage between 2019 and 2020 was also attributed to report in the crude oil production during the period. It was a period that saw a build up to the COVID. Next slide. Total government revenues earned in 2020 was $20 billion. And then when you compare it with what was earned in 2019, you could see that there was a loss in revenue. In 2019, we earned $34.4 billion. There was 40% reduction in revenue. Next slide. And we're also able to show total earnings in the sector in 10 years, amounting to $394 billion. If you start from 2019, we earned 68 billion. And then you could see that the highest time oil went, the highest earnings was in 2011. That's 68 billion. And then the lowest so far was in 2020. 2020 was the epic year of COVID. Next slide. In terms of gas, 3 million cubic feet was produced, valued at $1.018 billion. We equally show the 5-year trend analysis on gas production in Nigeria. And as you can see, we witnessed the highest production in 2017, with production rising to 3.5 million cubic feet. Can you go to next slide? On cash call payments, during the year 2020, total cash call paid to JV operators was $3.6 billion. Total funding of the cash call account in 2019 and 2020 are also reproduced below. In 2019, the total cash call funding was $5.45 billion. And then only in 2020, $3 billion was used to fund cash call, representing a reduction of 44%. Cash call liabilities that are outstanding is $1.6 billion. Total cash call liabilities as at December 2020. Next slide. Now on subsidy, the total money spent on subsidy for 2020 was 106.9 billion naira. The total volume that was involved in the direct purchase crude oil export, 107.746 million barrels, valued at $6.7 billion. And the value that was returned in the country was $6.03 billion, which our report tracked a variance between $6.7 billion minus $6.03 billion. That's a product subsidy SP under recovery, which I've highlighted. That's on subsidy. We also have data on contribution to the industry, to the economy, contribution of the industry to the economy in 2020. Oil and gas contributed 8.16% to the economy, and the total real GDP of $432.3 million. Contribution to government revenue is also outlined. The oil and gas sector contributed 75% to government revenues, while total government revenues for the year was 12.52 trillion, while oil and gas sector alone contributed 9.44 trillion. We also have contribution to employment in disaggregated format, and the contribution of oil and gas sector also to both employment, and employment figure is also disaggregated, broken down. We have a booklet on these infographics for easy understanding, which we will share with the media. Do you have enough copies to give them at the high table? Huh? Yeah, table. Okay. You could have given them at the high table. All these are broken down here. I will make this available to the media, both in hard and soft copies. Next slide. On oil, that's not, where's the title? Oil, crude losses and oil theft, am I right? Pardon? Oil spills, sorry. Minor oil spills were noticed in 257 cases. Medium oil spills were just 23 occurrences, and the major one was only one major occurrence. Available records show that spills of 370 cases. 370 cases. The sites visited by, these are the sites visited by our industrial reports, industry experts, industry administrators were 9. Total oil spilled in barrels, the total crude we lost through oil spill was 21.86 million barrels. The total oil spilled in terms of liters is 3.4 million liters. Please, can you go to the next slide? Well, last time we reported that 77 companies were owing in 2019, 27 companies were owing Nigeria. Please, that should be 2019, not 2021. $6.3 billion, representing 2.65 trillion. Please note, that should be 2019. Can you point at that place, Toko? It's 2019. It's a mistake, but it's corrected, yes. So currently, the number of companies owing has dropped to 51 companies. And these are collectible revenues that are due to the former DPR, now with the authority and the FRS. We have disaggregated figures on who is owing what exactly, and which of the companies that are owing. 77 were owing 6.36 billion before, but from our reports in 2020, as of December 2020, that figure has dropped to 3.17 billion in 2020, representing 1.32 trillion. That is what 51 companies are currently owing the government and the federation. Next slide. Well, we have some recommendations, and there are 19 of them. There are 16 of them, yes, summary of recommendations. There are 16 of them. We have carefully applying them. We have recommendations in terms of subsidy. Our position has been that Nigeria must muster the courage to deal with this subsidy issue once and for all. NITI has made this recommendation since 2006. But government, we are aware, has the total picture when and how to remove the subsidy. But our position is clear, remove subsidy. But who is going to remove it, when and how do you manage it? Government has more information on social impacts and then on kind of infrastructure that should be put in place to make sure that even when we are transparent, we are not naked. That should be very important. Yeah. So next slide. So we have also recommendations on the recovery of this money, 1.32 trillion company debts. We do not manufacture data. These are data from the respective agencies against these companies. And we make this point clearly. NITI respects the companies who are doing business in Nigeria. Without the companies, there will be no industry. And without the companies, there will be no revenue. Without the companies, there will be no investment. All we are asking is the taxes and levies and revenues due to government. Please remit them to government as at when due, as done in other jurisdictions. This is consistent with the global EITI standard. This is consistent with the way businesses are done elsewhere. In the UK, anywhere you drink cup, you drink tea, you pay tax. You sneeze, you pay tax. You wear dress, you pay tax. So if companies come to do business here, the minimum requirement 90 is saying, pay your taxes and royalty as at when due. We are not driving them. So those who say, oh, when you mention that companies are owing tax, they will run away. Where are they running to? Are they running to companies, to societies that don't collect tax? No. So just pay taxes to government so that government will be in a position to be able to fix several issues that are helping, that will help businesses to grow in the sector. We have recommendations that recovering this money will be is as urgent as possible. I will have the information and data to help the FRS, to help the various regulatory commissions and authority that are required to collect. We do not collect money. We don't keep, but we'll have the information and data on who is owing what. There is also a recommendation we have on certain transactions on OML 116. Go to the next slide. On crude losses and on NLNG payments, and so on and so forth. There are 16 of those recommendations, and the major highlights and details of our recommendations are contained in both the executive summary and in the main report. Besides, NITI will also be issuing official statements that will be comprehensive in this information. Next slide. Thank you very much.
All right, please, let's appreciate the Executive Secretary of NITI, Dr. Orji Ogbonaya Orji, for the highlights and key findings of the 2020 oil and gas sector report. We did apologize for starting this function late. We won't take more of your time. We know for the media practitioners in our midst, you will need to go back to file your reports. And we know that the deadline is very precious. Amongst the media chieftains who are here for this event is Ladi Bala. Ladi Bala is the national president of NAWAJ. That is the Association of Women Journalists of Nigeria. Ladi Bala, thank you for being here. We also have the Deputy Director of Mines Inspectorate, Engineer Imam Ganiu, has been around. And then from the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, we have Bemi Ayodele Emmanuel, who has also been available. So would like to thank you for your time. The reports, of course, are available. You would get them as the ES has promised in due course for the solid mineral sector and the FASD. But for those, of course, who are reporters, CSOs, and others, you have a lot of data and information to mine from these industry reports that have just been unveiled. So we will speak things up fairly quickly and now call for the vote of thanks. because we have a number of very busy executives. FRS chair is still here. The CFO of NNPC Limited, who gave us the slogan, transparency without nakedness, has to return to the NNPC, task, and all others as well for other business of the day. So we will be taking the vote of thanks, and my pleasure to invite Mrs. Obiageli Onwara, who is Deputy Director, Head Communications and Advocacy of NATI. Mrs. Onwara, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kingsley. When we started this, good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I feel greatly honored to have been invited to give the vote of thanks at this event. When we started this event earlier, we said we won't exceed 2 hours. I think we've tried to stick to that time. So let me start by thanking most graciously our astute chairman of the NATI board and other members of the NATI board who have supported him at the presentation of this report. So I will thank you because the commitment of the board, the diligence, the resilience saw to the completion of this report. I've also enjoyed your support and leadership since assumption as the chairman of the NATI board. We are indebted to our sister agencies here. We have the chairman of the FIRS, sir. Thank you, sir, for coming. We have the NNPC ably represented by the CFO. Thank you, sir, for coming. We have the CAC, the SA to the Registrar General is here. Thank you. The ICPC, the EFCC, the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development. Thank you all for coming, and quite a number of others that's too numerous for me to mention here. Our thanks also go to the companies. I can see ITEL and quite a number of them. All the time we call upon you, you answer. And thank you for being responsive to the tenets and principles of the EITI. Not forgetting our friends in the third sector, the media and the civil society. You've laid the foundation for the demand side of accountability in the EITI process. Thank you for your support so far. Thank you for amplifying our voice and putting the pressure when it is most needed. The implementation of the recommendations of the reports we've presented today, to a large extent, will depend on your push and the things that you do moving forward. I want to also say thank you to our international office, represented by Dr. Mike Uzigwe. I saw Nyasha Vera a while ago online. I don't know if she's still there, and quite a number of them from the EITI International Secretariat. Thank you, Nyasha, for your support all the time. We appreciate. I must also appreciate the support of other donor agencies, the World Bank, Rolag EU, British Council is here, Mr. Plank and Dr. Emmanuel Uche. I can see you, Global Rights, and quite a lot of others here, too numerous to mention. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for your support. To my executive secretary, thank you, sir. We've so benefited from your wealth of experience. The road is still very, very far. We still have a lot of work to do together. Thank you, sir, for your resilience, your determination to get things done. I'm learning so much. To the native management and other distinguished guests, we thank you for lending your unflinching support to the EITI process in Nigeria. I wish to very importantly recognize two teams. The director technical that led the technical team that produced this report, that midwifed the process of this report. DTech, Dr. Dita Bassi, please. Can you just stand with your team? The communications team, the department which I humbly lead, they are also here. Please stand. You know, when you sit for about 3 weeks reviewing a report, going back and forth, you'll understand what that means. We go home exhausted. I'm not sure I've had 4 hours sleep in the past 3 weeks leading to this event. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you. NATI appreciate, we recognize. For an event of this magnitude, it's possible that I may have omitted some names. or some organizations. It's not deliberate. I want to apologize ahead of time, but please, you are all recognized, you are all welcome. We thank you for your presence, thank you for your support. On behalf of the NATI board, management and staff, I want to say a very big thank you to us, and then to please request that we take time to read this report. At this time, NATI did things a lot differently. We not only published the main report, we also published the executive summary. In case if you do not have time to read the main report, this is just about 30 pages. Now, even if you don't have time to read the executive summary, we have the simplified copy where you can just decide on the issues you want to take on. I'm talking to the civil society and the media now. Once you go here, you can see the details there. All the issues as they are put down in the main report are in these infographs. You can pick them up and then go to the main report to look at areas that interest you or that you want to carry out your advocacies on. Once again, thank you so very much for coming, and God bless Nigeria, God bless NATI, God bless our stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Obiageli Onwara, for the vote of thanks. Just a couple of announcements before we close. We will take the national anthem shortly, and after the national anthem, the dignitaries would take a group photograph. Where's the most convenient location with a backdrop, I think should be in this hall as well. The cameraman would give us the best guide on that. They could also be joined by some of the directors of NATI. So that will be after the national anthem. Now, we all right, just to also let you know that the reports that have been unveiled are available on the NATI website. The abridged version, the fuller version, you would get on the NATI website. Now, the NATI Secretariat, the ES has, along with his team, taken a decision. They do not wish to do something that could lead to the closure of this hotel. They had prepared souvenirs for the attendees at this event. And I'm sure you knew what happened in Lagos over the weekend when there was a ceremony, and then the gifts they got were kegs of petrol. Petrol as souvenir, I think 4 liters or 8 liters. And you also heard what happened immediately. They said the event center, Havila at Oniru of Victoria Island, has been closed down. And then the celebrant has also been arrested for endangerment of public safety. We would have given you kegs of petrol here now, but ES said no. So the alternative will be lunch. And so I'm sure you have received a voucher for your lunch. That one is better than going with a keg of petrol that will lead to the closure of Fraser Suits. Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let's rise for the national anthem. Arise, O come, trust Nigeria's call obey to serve our fatherland with love and strength and faith. The labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. To serve with heart and mind, one nation bounding freedom, peace and unity.
I see skies